again, thank you for coming out tonight. And thank you, Kevin, for running with this. I'm really looking forward to learning a little bit more about our hitting foundations. So take it away.
Sounds good. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. Excited to do this. And if there's any questions along the way, you can either stop me or we can keep them to the end. It doesn't matter to me. Yeah, so first, my name's Kevin McCarthy. There's a lot of stuff on here, but the biggest the biggest things to know are that I really enjoy working with numbers and data, and then also have a lot of experience with how stuff moves. So that's something that's always interested me. So I've kind of used that to work in pro sports and hockey, first of all, then worked in the Toronto Blue Jays organization as a player development coach, and then moved on now to opening up LaunchPad Sports in Fredericton. The agenda for today, we'll touch on some foundations and fundamentals of hitting. We'll then look at some common mistakes or quick fixes from a coaching perspective. We'll then look at some examples from the youth or the player perspective. We'll look at some drills that can help fix or get a different feel for drills. Then look at some practice plans and how that should be laid out, or kind of a rough guideline of that, and then touch on the resources available, both on the internet and in New Brunswick. So the goals for this first are to understand the movement patterns of good hitters, of strong elite hitters. My philosophy, and I guess the latest research has been around skill acquisition and motor learning. So we're going to talk about constraints and using feedback for athletes instead of overcoaching or cueing 4 or 5 different things at once. We're hoping to give you the ability to correct some of the foundational issues and gain confidence in identifying the root cause of things, and not necessarily what the remedy is, but really getting at the cause of what's the issue with the swing. And then we'll talk about some drills as well that you can plug into practice right away. S'il y a des personnes francophones aussi, je suis content de répondre aux questions en français. Ou s'il y a quelque chose que je peux expliquer un peu mieux, laissez-moi savoir. Moi, ça ne me dérange pas du tout de le faire en français aussi. So just to touch on hitting fundamentals, the constraint-based teaching is putting players in situations where their body isn't necessarily used to it. So putting them in a position that they're not accustomed to, and then from there getting them to feel or find new ways to solve the problem. So we're not as much tweaking every detail of their swing and where they should start their hands, where they should move through the zone. We're just kind of letting them explore different movements. That kind of comes in with prioritizing movement patterns and consistency of those movement patterns over finding the perfect swing. It also is important to encourage those athletes to have a growth mindset, and that's that you're both learning together. Every kid is different. Every solution is different. There's usually a common theme through them, but there's some, you can get there with a number of different ways, a number of different cues. And then try and keep the interactions positive, reinforce what they're doing well, reinforce the effort that they're putting in to new movement solutions. And that usually gets you a lot more buy-in. So first, touching on the very first thing you do when grabbing a bat, we want to be firm. There's a good quote from Ted Williams there. We want to be firm, but not choking the bat. Another, I guess, basic principle is that we either want our knuckles that we use to knock, we either want those lined up, or if we put our index fingers out, that those are both pointing in the same direction. So there's kind of a range there that you can play with. Other foundational musts are having an athletic stance. We can see in all these images here, everybody does it differently. Everybody gets there a different way. There's some people that like starting lower or that are better suited for a low stance. And then there's others that prefer being upright and then moving down into their swing. The other important thing with transitioning from our stance to our swing is the loading up portion of it. It's really important, or the most important part of this would be, in my opinion, again, would be loading with rhythm control, trying to be really smooth with it. We don't want it to be sharp and jaggedy, for lack of a better term, but we do want it to be smooth and come to a consistent location. I found that using music usually connects with a lot of people, a lot of kids, in identifying like a slower rhythm that they like to move to. Plus, it's always nice to have some music in the background.
Sorry, I just have a quick question with the stance.
Yeah.
Is there like benefits to like having that lower right stance versus like that upper left one?
Um, depends on the individual. I think a lot of it, there's like two big frames of thought on either being terrestrial, which would be being low to the ground, and that's your strength. And then there's another group of athletes that is more aerial, so more upright. But it's unless you've taken a lot of courses in it, which I haven't, there's advantages to both depending on your preference or how you move. So trying both out isn't a bad idea. Yeah, good question. And then from that load or that athletic stance, we talked about being smooth, loading up. And then when we move forward, again, we're trying to control and be really smooth, have some flow. So we can see from one slide to the next, the majority of people here have their hands in line with their back shoulder and up as well on that back shoulder. And it's important to get to what we would call the launch position. So that's where all these images are, right before somebody steps with that front foot or right before the front foot lands. The commonality between all the good hitters are that their hands are up and loaded in line with their shoulders again. Their hips are coiled, and then their feet are usually aligned to the other batter's box. So when we make that transition from being loaded and behind our shoulder or in line with our shoulder, it's important to keep that position as we move forward. And that's, being hands high, hips still coiled. And then one thing that they all do here too, especially in the one on the bottom left in red, we can see that she kind of holds her posture. We use that to kind of say like the hips are back a little bit hinged. And then the chest is kind of leaning over top of home plate. That's another kind of must while you transition. It gives you the ability to reach both sides of the plate without feeling like you're too far away. So this would be a major probably the most important position to get to. And it's difficult to do it consistently, but we can talk about how to get there, how to look at this too from a video standpoint. Any questions on this? Perfect. So again, we touched on learning with constraint drills. So constraint drills allow players to self-organize. So that means their body starts moving in different ways, but they're not forcing it. So it's natural to them. The constraints also expose inefficiencies and promote players understanding what they're feeling versus focusing too much on different body parts. And that's something that research has shown too, that when you're trying to build movement patterns, thinking about internal cues doesn't produce as good results as if you're talking about external cues. So that would be if you're trying to get an athlete to turn their hips really fast, instead of using, can you focus on turning your hips really fast? You could use like, when you're done, I'd like your belly button to be facing the pitcher. So thinking about not what's going on with your body and how you have to move to get to a solution. There's a lot of literature on this. There's a couple books by Dr. Rob Gray that are really good. Constraint drills do a better job of retaining new movements and being adaptable to new or different solutions. It also leads to better patterns under pressure. So you're not internally focusing on what's happening with you when you're in a game situation, and instead you're focusing on how to obtain the right result or how to move. So a lot less internal critiquing and more confidence in what you're supposed to do.
Sorry, I have another question.
Yeah, absolutely.
So are constraint drills good for athletes that are just learning how to play, or is this better for more fine-tuning the mechanics?
Both. Yeah, they're. I think when they're really young, giving them a bunch of different positions to get in will kind of mold the ideal swing you want eventually. It is a longer process to use constraint drills, but if you started at a very young age, then it's very beneficial in the long run. Yeah. So constraint drills, I'll touch on a couple examples before we get too far into it, so people understand a little better where we're coming from. Constraint drills are basically putting some examples of it would be like in this picture, starting up in a one-footed stance and having to transfer your weight or control your weight as you swing. It can be using different sized balls, different weight of balls, light or heavy bats, obstacles. It can be competitions where you're assigning points to stuff you wouldn't necessarily associate with being beneficial, such as like let's give a point for every ground ball if you're trying to get somebody to stay on top in their load instead of having their hands dip down. So that's kind of a global overview of constraint drills. They do a really good job of eliminating bias from coaches, so eliminating overcoaching. It lets the environment that you're in, or the position, or the equipment you're using, do the teaching instead of the coach providing too much guidance on how you're supposed to do it. It's even better when we're giving the athlete just one cue to focus on at a time. So in this one, for example, we're going to ask her to slowly move forward, and then the cue would be to try and hold your hands at the same position while you're moving forward. If you're not getting the result you want, again, you can switch to a different cue. If it doesn't click with somebody, that's okay. It's usually a trial and error process anyways. So yeah, switching cues is a good idea as well. The other advantage is, and we touched on it, not thinking internally too much. So better retention when we're in pressure situations. And then it also allows us to not think about our hands, our hips, but focusing on just the posture we're in. And that way we can work from the ground up. So a really common one, really beneficial one is the one you see in the top right, where somebody is closed off to the plate. We'll touch on like what mistake that helps to correct. And then in the bottom here, on the bottom left, you can see that she's kind of has that chest over the plate posture that we were talking about earlier as she moves forward. So we can promote that by doing a couple different drills as well. Some constraints too that are helpful to get to launch, as we touched on, are like stride stops. So that would be starting in your normal stance and then taking a stride, stopping, and making sure you're in a similar position as you want to be at launch. So it helps ground individuals. So we're now using our biggest source of energy to our advantage. It encourages a lot of controlled motion and movement as well. And then we can use different rhythm, flow, tempo. We can use pauses. We can get into different positions to make sure we're kind of funneling through different movements correctly. It also allows us to ask more questions about how the swing felt, or what it did, what body part, what are we using more, what are we using less. We're able to get more feedback from the athlete on whether the drill or the exercise felt like we were going quicker, slower, stronger, just as much feedback as we can get to kind of piece it together for them. We can ask them to kind of demonstrate what they feel when stuff goes right, or when it feels really good. What do they feel versus what feels bad? So then you're able to kind of talk their language, make sure you're both on the same page. Yeah, really helpful to be talking the same lingo and really understanding. You can get kids telling you 10 different things, and making sure you tell them the thing that connects with them is will get you there a lot quicker if you're trying to make swing corrections. And then again, we're not trying to build a perfect swing. We're trying to get them to use their best swing often. But the constraints themselves allow you to adjust and be malleable. So that's another big advantage. Here we will just pause that video. That video is working for everyone? Yeah, okay. So now we'll touch on some common movement errors in athletes. So the first one we've all seen, I imagine, is casting or getting extended early. That usually happens when our sequencing is off. So when we do get in that good launch position, what should happen is that our hips transfer, or their feet transfer energy to our hips, and then to our torso, to our arms, and then our hands. So what we see with casting is that that sequence of event is off. Usually the hands are racing in front of the torso. So yeah, we're leaving a lot on the table. There's um, a lot of both energy and direction that can be gained if we sequence properly. And then for the athletes, a lot of the time they're doing this because they feel like they're running out of time to hit the ball. They feel like they can't properly like get in that launch position. So you're gonna have to help them get there. Um, some constraints that we can use, some drills, are using a short bat and just a normal stance. What that will do is get the athletes to wait a little longer before using their hands or their arms. If they don't, they're just going to completely miss the ball. So kind of teaches them that I'm going to have to wait a little bit. Um, Sometimes they don't quite get that by themselves, so you have to kind of pull it out of them. Um, they feel like they're swinging way too early, then you just try and guide them into trying something new, letting the ball go back a little deeper. The other thing you can do is use a heavy bat. That works really well because if you do just use your hands, you're going to be really off balance and it's going to be really hard to swing. So, usually, the feedback from using a heavy bat, if they're doing it correctly, will be that it didn't feel heavy. It felt quick. It was a lot of effort, but yeah, but it was really quick. Other ones you can do for casting are just teaching patterning for either the top or bottom hand, usually both. Um, and we're not trying to get a new best distance or best exit velocity. We're really just trying to show them how to stay behind and through the ball instead of using our hands to kind of cut across. And then the last one that can work really well is the one that we see in this video. This athlete is standing kind of with their toes or the top of their toes. If you drew a line, that they'd be down the third baseline. So we call that being open to the pitcher. If they do cast, they're not going to be able to hit the ball in fair territory. So the cue we would give them in this situation would be to hit the ball in the middle. And what they'll have to do is wait deep enough and long enough and produce energy from their feet and their hips in order to hit. Are there any questions on this one?
I do.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, for like the short bat, would just like a T-ball bat kind of thing work or shorter than that?
yeah. T-ball bat would work.
And like
Um,
heavy bat would be like slow pitch kind of thing?
yep, yep. That would be a good use. You can also you can also mimic a short bat by like gripping the bat halfway up. That also helps. Yeah, you can kind of grip it like a hockey stick or a lacrosse stick where your hands are split up. And that again, that'll kind of get the same feeling out of it. Yeah.
And then how many repetitions of these drills would you recommend?
I'd say like do 6 to 8 and then kind of download what happened to them, what they're feeling. And then take a little break and then do it again if necessary. Yeah. If they get it, then after they've done it a couple times successfully, I'd transition to like doing it from a normal stance and trying to get them to feel the same thing when they're trying to do their actual swing.
Cool. Thanks.
No problem.
Stacy's got a question too.
Yeah.
Hi. When you talk about one-handed swings,
Yep.
which, what are you trying to correct if you use the top versus bottom, or does it matter?
Yeah. Good question. Usually the casting is like the top hand that gets really active. So what you try to do is, if we look at this image here, you would try to get the athlete in for both hands to kind of try and keep their hand on that white batter's box line. So you're trying to stay really directional towards the pitcher, and kind of it'll feel like they're staying inside. But yeah, if you can stay along that white line as long as possible, that should correct that casting component.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. If there's no more, I will go to the next one. Perfect. Yeah, the next one we see a lot is hands dropping or disconnecting from the body early. This usually happens when we lose control of the posture we've set. So we're not kind of leaning over the plate anymore, and our hips aren't engaged. One solution is to establish a really good launch. We'll look at a video here, and we can see the first thing that happens is the hands kind of go down and away from the body. Really common. The majority of the time, again, it's because we're kind of trying to pop up to swing. So we can see her kind of moving up in order to make room for her hands. If we're kind of leaning with our chest over the plate, our hands have some room to come inside. So it's kind of a function of not being in an athletic stance. Some drills we can see below to help correct that. You can either use a connection ball, so that would be putting that on your back arm between the elbow and the forearm, and you're trying to keep that ball there until you're trying to make that ball fall in front of you at some point instead of falling behind. So if we were to put a ball on this lady here, as soon as the swing would start, the ball would fall backwards into the netting. We'll see that there. Yeah. And then, so we're trying to keep the ball in line with us, in front of us, or like towards the pitcher. The next one we see in the bottom right is somebody on one knee. That kind of does not allow us to drop our hands. Our bat would hit the ground. So we're trying to get the athlete to feel a swing coming in from really high. And it's really easy to keep posture there too. The other one we can do is have a tee really high and then trying to cue the athlete to swing from above or swing from high. They do a really good job of teaching, getting into or keeping your hands up high while you're moving forward. Any questions on this one?
I just have a quick question. Is there either one of these that you would recommend more for like 7-8-year-olds? Like, which one of these do you think would work better from your experience?
Yeah, I think the elevated tee does not work well for the younger groups.
Okay.
They have a hard time understanding it. The knee down on the bottom right, they get and they kind of understand how that works. And then the connection ball is probably the one they have the more fun with. So I'd say definitely the two that are shown here. The elevated tee is more would be more advanced than the other two.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
No problem. Okay, we'll keep going. The next one, this is really common, stepping out or stepping in the bucket. Usually, well, there's actually a lot of different scenarios or reasons why this happens. It's a little tougher to diagnose. Can be due to poor timing and kind of running out of space. So I guess posture would come into play there too. We're trying to turn really fast. We don't really understand how to do that without opening up. It can be fear of being hit by a ball again, probably. Or it can be wanting to turn freely and kind of the easiest way your body knows how, which is turning everything together at the same time. The kind of solutions to this are encouraging moving towards the pitch. So whether that is starting at the back corner of the batter's box, taking a couple steps and trying to swing. It can be just walking in a straight line and swinging. If you're moving a lot before the pitch, and you swing while opening up, you're going to be off balance quite a bit. So that would be 2 drills. And then we can see the one at the bottom here. I really like it. We kind of start with our front foot in front of our back one, and we have our chest over the plate. So we've got really good posture. We're able to set everything in the right spot right away. Then from there, we're trying to swing, and I guess the cue or the thought would be for the athlete to keep that chest over the plate. And the important thing for them to feel is how quick it is and how turning kind of into that front leg gives you a lot more power and stability. Then this one is a little more advanced. This would be similar to how we opened up in the previous or in the first drill or in the first correction. In this one, we're going to line up kind of the opposite way, so closed off to the pitcher. Again, this allows us to feel what it's like to use our front legs effectively, and allows us to turn a lot faster. We're similarly to the other one where we were open. When we're closed, we want to try and hit the ball right up the middle. And again, we're exploring, or it's important to get them to explore at what depth they can hit. So whether they can hit the ball really far in front of the plate or behind the plate, and let them kind of make the decision on what's beneficial.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Oh, Jacqueline, you can go first.
Thanks, Megan. Just question on this one, Kevin. So I have a player, actually, Stacy and I coach together. We have a player, she's great with the tee. All the fundamentals are there. She crushes the ball, but as soon as it does turn into the live pitch, I do think it's fear. Like you can start to see her, to your point, backing out. And so all of a sudden she's swinging on like a downward scoop and up on her toes. So it also kind of looked like the last slide as well. So the movement into the pitch, is there a variation of that where we could do it without the tee, or is it more so should be doing the steps toward a tee hit? Because I'd love to try to do that, but with a live pitch.
Yeah. I would recommend doing it with a live pitch.
Okay.
Especially if you can make it, very safe for her, like so that she feels like she's free to, like, there's no fear. That would be a great idea.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Even if it's from the side, like a soft toss, still would work well.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And that was essentially my question, so never mind.
Okay.
I'm going to ask how to reduce fear, but never mind.
Yeah, making it easy for them to fail and not have any negative is, in my opinion, the best way to do that. All right. The other one we see a lot, this one's not a technical mistake, but having hitters that that don't really move or don't get set before the ball comes out of the pitcher's hand. It's one that happens at all ages, and it makes people have to speed up again. And then once we do speed up, that sequencing kind of goes out the window, and we're just trying to survive. The majority of the issue stems from that loading up phase between the stance into that launch. So not having rhythm or movement or a trigger mechanism, which would mean like when the pitcher starts moving, I'm going to start moving a little bit. When the pitcher's arm like cocks back, I'm going to start doing the same. So I found like using music again or dance and kind of creating a link between what the pitcher's doing and the hitter helps people grasp that. Some drills to encourage that would be to get moving early, encourage like a feeling of falling. And then we'll look at the drills we can do for this. So here's an example of not really moving until the ball's thrown. Then we have to go really, really fast to catch up. I'll try and full screen this one. Unless we can see. Give me 1 second. Gotta get by my screen. So here we're kind of stacked up with our knee up, and then as we move our leg down and forward, we're kind of falling into a swing. That again helps us learn how to move prior to the pitch because we're trying to do it really slow, really controlled. And then down here we've got another one. And these would be. This first one is just an example of somebody having to speed up and swinging fast. We can see like the exit velocity being around 46, and these swings are like 5 or 10 swings apart too. So that's the first one. We're going really fast, not a lot of sequencing. And then in this one, apologies for the grainy video. In this one, we've kind of got our foot back and hooked around our back foot, and we're letting our body start moving while keeping stacked up and loaded with our hands. So if we go really slow through this, we can see, we'll play it. We can see kind of a lot better sequencing, a lot better swing, and then a lot more balanced ending. Yeah, the other one would be similar to what we were discussing before, like walking into the pitch and having to slow down, like walking fast and slowing down to gain control is another effective one. Any questions on this? Perfect. I'll go through that again. Then the last one we're covering today is never really like swinging. We can be balanced, but never really being grounded, never using the ground as well as we can. The majority of them is the majority of the reasoning. You hear a lot of people saying like stay back. I think that gets misinterpreted by some athletes and will lead to them like kind of being stuck back or late moving forward. We want to encourage them to redirect their momentum or their fall, if you will, into the ground so that they're able to be really sturdy and balanced. Some drills to help kind of that issue is these step backs. So you would start maybe at the front of the box or near the plate. And then we're going to take a big step onto our back foot with control, and then move forward again into a sturdy position before we swing. Pretty simple one that you can do at every age. And you do see them like get a lot of confidence and hit the ball quite a bit harder just from doing that a couple times. The idea or the thought for them is like to again, let yourself be really loose when you turn back so that there's momentum being created and you're kind of like turning around your back leg. And then having to control that going forward is what's important. We can see kind of another example or an example here of an athlete that is pretty balanced when she's done swinging, but she's not really using the ground. She's not grounded, and it causes her to be late and kind of miss the ball. We can see like after she's done, she's kind of moving backwards and towards the left wall. So there's no real like consistency or heaviness. And then in this other one, we see her keep that front foot into the ground, really grounded. She's able to make a lot better connection and a lot better result. There's still some kind of tweaks we can make to the swing, but again, if we watch the first one, kind of late and having to rush everything, go really fast, and that causes us to not be able to stay grounded. The other one, she starts moving early, and she's able to connect pretty well with it. Other things you can do to kind of have benefit is to take a big stride, like that whole first portion of our swing. We can stride and then stop, make sure we're in the right position, and then swing from there. I think that should be one drill that's in every coach's toolbox at all levels. And then other ideas that aren't necessarily swing-based, you can use like a really heavy ball and get them to try and throw it without falling over. You can get them on one leg and trying to get as much power as they can. Excuse me. You can make that too, that one-legged thing, a competition where if you circle out a part of the infield, if they hit it past that, they get a point. Again, you're trying to promote them moving really fast, but in control and balanced. Any questions for this one? Okay. So we'll kind of sum up everything in the next two slides, and then I'll ask if there's any other kind of questions or any other issues or mistakes or drills we want to touch on. But when possible, I would recommend trying to use constraints and putting them in situations that are a lot different instead of giving them direct directions on what they should do and what they should feel. You want to let them kind of explore that process and help you understand what they're doing. One thing that's really helpful, really easy for them to see, is just to pull out a cell phone and get a look at their posture before they start swinging, and then at the end, and see if that stayed consistent or it swayed. And then you can always bring it back to that launch position. Did we ever get there? Did we ever get to a balanced spot with our hands up high in the back? The answer is usually no for 95% of all hitters. So that's kind of like the big focus. We want to reinforce when they do something well, even though they don't hit it or they they don't hit it hard. Making sure when they move differently and in the way you kind of ask them to reinforce that so they can keep exploring and figuring it out. Did we stay kind of grounded through our finish? What direction we're falling? We're falling backwards, we're falling left, right. Then trying to understand which one is ideal. And then, yeah, it's going to feel weird no matter any change is going to feel weird. So asking them to give like a description of why it feels weird, or they can show you what they mean. You can just say, maybe you can't explain it, but can you show me how it feels? Can you do it in slow-mo? And then again, if you tie it back to video, then it's even better. And they really, that loop, the conversation and the learning feedback gets shortened and you can make bigger strides quicker. In terms of practice planning, think like having 20 to 30% of a practice dedicated to hitting is a really good idea, especially at the younger ages. We can get them in like 3 different groups, 3 different stations, and really get a lot done in like 20, 25 minutes. You can use all sorts of constraints. We touched on it earlier, like with the baseball New Brunswick teams, some of the kids in the facility, we use like little purple balls that are a little bit heavier, and they don't fly at all unless you hit them perfect. So right away, the athlete knows if they've hit it right on the money, or if they swung under, over, so they can start building that, that feedback for themselves. You can use a heavy bat. You can get them standing in whatever position. You can get them moving. Just 3 different kind of ideas. Maybe one where there's movement, one where they're stationary, trying to feel something new, and then one where just the equipment changes. That'd be my recommendation to kind of speed everything up. We touched on competitions, so finding like a scoring system that gets the desired movements out of them. So it could be if you have a group that swings really steeply down all the time, maybe for them, they've got to hit the ball out of the infield, or the ball has to roll out. Whereas if you have somebody that's constantly kind of dipping their hands, you maybe want to promote hitting a ground ball, a hard ground ball. So you can team them up against each other, and they really like that, and they seems to like catch even quicker than just getting them individually. Then tracking progress is another way to get them to buy in and to feel involved in the process. So giving them a goal, or just explaining to them like what we're trying to achieve. Here's how the video or the data looked last week. Here's what it looks like this week. We may not have progressed this week in one or the other, but we're still taking steps to get to a better version. It's not always going to work 100%. So if it's not, then you can either adjust, or if you think that they're going to break through soon, which can take some time, that's completely fine as well, as long as you're open with them about those conversations. Got some resources here on the hitting side. I find driveline baseball really useful for everything throwing and hitting related. They kind of started the whole technology movement in baseball and softball. Everything they do is based on data. So they've tested all these drills and what it does, like from a biomechanics standpoint, sequencing standpoint. So all of that is research based, and they're excellent. They're really good at explaining everything. There's some good books by Rob Gray. That's more of like learning how to move, and motor control. Then there's 3 other good ones for the softball side. From there, I just wanted to touch on LaunchPad a little bit. Similarly to Driveline, we try and do this all data based. So we've got the ability to look at video right away, delay it so people can look right away. We've got Rapsodo that also gives us some data and video. The blast motion that you see in the bottom left, where we have that 3D swing, those are, last I checked, they were around $150. It's a good investment, in my opinion, one that most teams can use, even to just make sure you're tracking progress. Really helpful. And then, there's some biomechanics apps and things like that from Parados that we use as well. All really good in their own way for different things you're trying to achieve. The top two are definitely way more expensive, but the bottom 2 are affordable and good options for kids as well. Yeah, that's all I've got. I'd love to answer some questions if anybody has any, and if we have like different issues that kids are having, I'm happy to try and answer them as well.
All right, I guess I have a question.
Yeah.
Each of the, because it's like we have a lot of U9, U11, U13, U15. At each of those age categories, is there one specific kind of drill that you find works best for like a U9 player versus a U15?
Yeah, good question. Find the U13 and U15 ones. The biggest benefit they get are from moving. So anything where they're moving into the pitch or having to control their weight going forward, that seems to be more beneficial. Whereas the younger age groups are doing a lot of these off the tee, or at a slow soft toss or from the front pace, is a lot more beneficial. So setting your feet up differently, using different equipment, that's what I would recommend for the younger groups. And then a lot of the moving for the older groups. Yeah.
Just curious on Launchpad, Kevin. We do have a couple of tournaments that are happening in Fredericton this year. So I think the girls obviously would love your space, but we've never taken them as a team. We were curious if you do kind of ever host teams, or if there's a way that you kind of could do that if we did a team event around that.
Yeah, we do host teams. We've had a lot of kind of season kickoffs in the last couple of weeks. So yeah, absolutely reach out and we can figure that out, whether it's just using the technology, or if you want some advice with coaching too, we can do either.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Stacy.
Thanks. My question was, Kevin, on a week-to-week basis, like when you give some of the resources like Hitting Vault and whatever, they'll send out like weekly or bi-weekly drills to focus on and that kind of thing. Does LaunchPad provide anything like that? Like I follow you guys on Facebook, but is there anything, is there a subscription-based something that LaunchPad offers for coaches, or?
Good question. No, we don't have that right now. Something we'd like to do is put a little more, content or drills out there. We do have a newsletter, but right now it's not focused on the drill portion. Something we want to do eventually, though.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
All of the coaches that are on the call tonight, unless somebody snuck in at the last minute, are all from KV Association.
Oh, yeah.
So clearly we all have an interest to get. I'm sure the coaches in Fredericton, it would be a little bit different. They would, in Oromocto, they would know how to get in touch with you and everything. But clearly we have a keen interest here to learn more. So if there's something that you're offering, please let us know.
Okay. No, that's great. That's it's going to be, hopefully it's good for KV softball.
Anyone?
Thank you. This was good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, thanks, Megan. Really happy to do this and excited to get some questions. If you have some down the line, send me an email and I'll answer when I can.